Hey y'all, Caleb here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to uh, deploy an Angular static website to Azure Blob Storage. And so you may be wondering, why would you want uh, to use Azure Blob Storage? And really the reasoning is I work a lot in Azure, so it's the system's something that I am definitely comfortable with. And blob storage is significantly cheaper than using an app service. An app service could be 15, 20 or more dollars a month, whereas blob storage is probably only going to be a few dollars at most. One thing to keep in mind, though, if you are using blob storage for your website, it has to be a static website. Trying to put a .NET Core app or something along those lines won't work. It just needs to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I've got our Angular application we created previously. It's still just the basic template. And so what we're going to want to do first is you want to go to extensions and make sure you have the Azure Storage extension installed, because that's what we're going to be using to deploy this Angular app. And then once you have it installed, you can go to this icon, and this will actually show you all of your Azure extensions. But right now, I'm just showing you the storage one. And if you haven't logged in, it will require you to log in for the first time. With your credentials for Azure. If you haven't created an Azure login, they're free, easy to do. I will add a link in the description for that. But then typically you're just going to have a pay-as-you-go. This would be paid through your credit card or PayPal or whatever. I also have a Visual Studio Professional account on top of my pay-as-you-go, where I have a certain amount of credits every month. So I'm going to do it under a Visual Studio Professional account. So select the one that you plan on using for billing, and we're going to right-click. And you can just create a storage account, but you'll have to go in and do some extra configuration after the fact. So for static websites, we want to choose the advanced option. And then we need to give it a name. So for us, we're just going to do Kalo's Blob. And then you want to select a resource group. These are some of the resource groups that I have used previously. You can create a new one. For this one, I'm just going to use the one that's already set up for Kalo's Blob. Would you like to enable static web hosting? This is the yes, because this is actually what we're going to be using the blob storage for. So we're going to select yes. And then we're going to enter the index. For Angular, everything runs through the index HTML because that's what your application is booted from, right? So we're going to do index, and we're going to do the same thing for your 404 error page. And then we're going to select the location for the resources. And for me, Central US is just fine because I'm in New Orleans. And it's going to create the storage account for us. Okay, so while it's doing that, I am going to go ahead and build our application. Let's see. Okay, so you can do ng-serve, right, which is what spins up your Angular application locally, and then you can go to localhost 4200 to view it. What we are going to be doing instead is an ng build, and ng build will actually take your Angular app and build it out to a dist folder and it's going to end up just being HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so we'll give it a minute to do that, and you'll see all the information that it put out there. And we can go take a look at the dist real quick. And you'll see this is the whole Angular application, which of course, because it's just the starter, there's not a whole lot to it. So let's go back and into VS Code, and you'll see it on here that it says the storage account has been enabled. Okay, so now we have this Caleb's Blob storage account inside of our payment option, our payment account. And if we dig down to blob container, you'll see $web, which is actually where our website will be hosted from. And so we're going to right click on Caleb's Blob, and we're actually going to deploy to static web. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you which folder you want to deploy. The option you're going to want to choose is the dist folder under your Angular application. So we selected dist, and we'll give it a minute to push all the assets up there. Shouldn't take too long. And then we're going to take a look at the website. Okay, so now you see it deployed our Angular app to this address. We can actually update this to use our own domain name. We can also do a few other things with it, but for this video, we're just going to leave with the one that Azure built for us. Okay, so we're going to load the website, and we get this error message, right? And you may be wondering, well, what's going on? This is actually not a 404 from inside the Angular app. This is a 404 from Azure. And so what's happening here is that if you remember, we looked in the dist, and inside the dist folder, it is putting everything in blob-website, right? And it does that by default. It's convention. So let's go see. If we look at blob website, you'll see we're getting an Angular icon here, but it's not fully loading. What we're going to do is, instead of having it put it in blob website, we're going to update our Angular JSON file. Now, there are several ways you could handle this. Parameters on your ng build, or using some external tooling. But I find this to be the easiest option, especially if this is a personal website or something that you're doing on the side for testing. So our output path is just going to be dist now. And we're going to go back and we're going to build it again. Okay, so now that it's built, let's go look in dist again. And you'll see all the files have been put directly in dist this time, which is what we want. So let's go back into Visual Studio Code and open up the extension, and we're going to redeploy from dist. And if you already have files up there, it's going to verify that you want to replace them. And we say yes. Okay, so it has redeployed the website. So let's go see what we get this time. See, there we go. So again, if we were to do ng-serve and pull this up, this is exactly what we would see. This is just the distribution version of it, just HTML, CSS, JavaScript running up in Azure Blob Storage. That's going to be it for this video. Hopefully it helped get you up and running in Azure Blob Storage, and maybe work through that odd error you run into the first time you deploy by default. If you have any comments, please leave them for me, and I'll take a look. And I hope y'all have a great day. Bye, y'all.